Good morning, everyone. The long-awaited day is here. We are finally harvesting garlic, which actually is a little bit earlier than previous years, but we had a really warm winter that really just didn't get that much colder again, and this garlic started to grow a bit early. I actually let it die off a little bit longer than I have in previous years as well, which is crazy. But yeah, we're gonna get all 3 beds of this harvested this morning, and it's about to be a lot of work, so let's get to it. So the game plan is to loosen up the soil, and then I'm going to transfer all this garlic into my garage, get it hung up, and start curing. I have a whole little situation for my curing that I'll show you guys that anyone could do in a garage. This was something I really wanted to figure out, being on a smaller backyard setting like I am. It can be hard to figure out ways to cure stuff. Pretty much my garage is going to be a little curing corner for the next 2 months, because once the garlic's done, the onions go in, or the onions might even go in during the same time the garlic is curing. We'll see how the onions do. But I also have all these potatoes as well that are going to be curing. So my garage is going to be curing garlic, onions, and also potatoes here in the next few months. So I'm gonna loosen up this soil, get everything transferred. I'm sure this is going to take a little bit, so let's get going. I think I'm gonna start with this bed just because that looks like the easiest one. It is quite the beautiful morning. I have to say, I really wanted to do this in the morning this year. Last year, I started it, I think 4, maybe 5 in the afternoon, once the sun got done with its peak, but it was so hot. Oh my gosh, it was way too hot to be harvesting that much garlic last year. I was sweating so bad. All right, let's see what we got. What is it, 8 months later? I think it's 8 months later. So I'm just going to put my fork in very far away from the garlic, and I'm just going to slightly loosen up this soil right here where I'm not piercing the garlic head at all. I'm just loosening up the soil. You don't want to get too close because you could accidentally pierce it, and then your garlic would not technically be ruined, but you would need to use it immediately instead of curing it for storage. Let's see what the first garlic head is going to give us. I will say I've already pulled a few and they looked beautiful because I was doing test pulls, but this is going to be the real indicator because I haven't pulled one in a few days. And oh my gosh, this is absolutely beautiful. Holy crap. This is such a beautiful bulb. Okay, so I'm just lightly removing some soil here. Wow, what beautiful garlic head. That is beautiful. This makes me so excited to see what else I'm about to uncover. Oh, and it smells so good. Slightly shake off that soil. This one's definitely not as big, but still a beautiful garlic. This is probably one of my favorite days of the year, to be honest. Garlic is probably my favorite crop to grow. It's really simple, it's easy. I plant it mid to end of October, and I typically harvest mid-June, which is always really nice because then you get this nice big harvest pretty much at the beginning of true growing season. I mean, we've been growing some stuff for a while now, but it's just a huge harvest right at the beginning to make you excited for the rest of the hard-working summer. I actually think I'm going to slightly remove some of this mulch because I want to keep some of this mulch for when I replant, so that's probably actually my better idea here. I forgot that I wanted to do this. Last year I didn't remove a lot of all this straw, and it just got mixed in to all the soil, which is not really ideal when you're trying to reuse it, so it's better to kind of get rid of it. I'm gonna just lay it beside the beds because I will be replanting these beds out over the next few days. I will be planting a round of tomatoes and a bunch of different green beans, and I have a few other pepper plants I'm gonna get planted as well. I'll make sure to do that with you guys. I guess I will mention I've only ever grown hardneck. I've never attempted soft neck. I think this next year I might order a few soft necks to see how they go. Typically, soft necks will store a lot longer, but I don't really mind the hard neck because you get a lot more flavor out of it and you can still preserve it really well. I did a bunch of freezing with it this last year and that worked so well. I was so happy with that. I got a whole year's worth last year, so I'm really hoping for the same outcome this year, which I'm thinking that we're going to get after those first few bulbs that I pulled. Removing this is kind of annoying, but we're gonna save some money using this mulch. I need to pop over here. I will say, don't just yank on the head. It's a lot better to loosen up this soil a little bit. Oh, we're getting some beautiful garlic. So I'm just gonna shake off a little bit of that soil. You can see there's a little bit left on there. Don't worry about that. Not a big deal. You don't want to clean, get your garlic wet or anything. It's another reason why I love garlic. It can be a little bit of work when you come to harvest, but there's really not much else to it. It's pretty easy. Ooh, wow. This is a beautiful bulb. Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, I was really nervous, okay, about this year's garlic because this was the first year I didn't buy seed garlic. I used all the garlic I grew last year for this year. And since this year like really progressed and started dying back a lot sooner, I was really worried. Not gonna lie to you. I have not expressed this at all because I was not going to put that into the air. I was not gonna manifest a bad garlic harvest because I wanted a really good one, obviously. Oh my gosh, another beautiful one. Okay, I am so excited right now. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. So I think my game plan is to get a bed harvested, move the garlic to the garage, get another bed harvested, get another bed of garlic moved to the garage. So last night I actually realized my husband, I was like, oh no. And he's like, what? And I was like, I don't have a wheelbarrow for tomorrow. I showed you guys last week how my wheelbarrow completely broke. The handle rusted off and I don't have a wheelbarrow to transfer all this. So I'm gonna have to grab it all, move it to the garage. So you will have a few that pop up like this. They're a little bit smaller and everything. These are still great. They won't store as long, but they're still cloves. You can powder them into garlic powder. Just use them first, but you'll always have a handful that are dinky. I'm actually shocked I haven't pulled one that's small yet. And what I'll do with the smaller ones as well is I'll pair those together. That way they're not getting lost in any of this big garlic. Just kind of move it over. It's looking like we probably will have another small one right here because somehow these ones grew side by side. Looks like I didn't realize that and they just kind of grew. Oh my God. You guys, these heads are beautiful. I'm so happy. So it's important not to let your garlic go too long because each one of those leaves is one of the layers of your papery like head around the garlic. So the more you let it die back, the more of those cloves can end up being exposed and then your whole garlic can go to waste. So you really want to try to find that window. It's pretty easy. Again, just use your leaves as indicators. There is one garlic head I'm really excited to pull. It was my biggest this entire time throughout like the whole growing season. So I'm really curious to see how that one's gonna look. It's this one in the very far corner here. It was more advanced than everyone for the longest time. Wow, I am so impressed by these. Even as a 6-year gardener now, I still worry about my harvest. Even though I know what I'm doing, there's just so many indicators that could go wrong. And again, this year being the first year that I used my own garlic, I was really worried. You know what, we're gonna pull this big one in it, or this one in a second that I was just saying, because I'm impatient and I wanna know. Wow, it's pretty. It's not really much bigger than any of the others, but maybe a little bit. This is a lot more enjoyable doing in the morning than the evening. I will fully admit that. I planted somewhere around 230, 240. I'll try to do a count when I tie up everything. I honestly can't remember. But this year I actually planted my garlic 6 inches apart and not 4 to 6 inches apart. And so far I feel like this is making a huge difference. All of my heads are looking really pretty and I only have a few that are smaller, and they're not even like small compared to some of the ones I had in previous years, honestly. So I'm really liking the 6-inch distance so far too. That was like the one thing I really changed this year. I devoted 3 garlic beds instead of 2, but I grew the same amount of garlic. So I wanted to see just if that would make a difference, and so far it's looking like it has been. Well, if all the beds are like bed one, I think I'm going to be a pretty happy camper. I don't think this is going to be too bad without the wheelbarrow. So I have a big fan going. I'm just going to set the garlic on this cardboard for now while I get the rest of the garlic up. Just kind of spread it out a bit. That way they can start drying out a little bit before I start hanging them in clusters. Technically, I grew all this garlic for free since I didn't have to buy seed garlic. In previous years, I'd buy like $50 to $100 worth of seed garlic. Wow, look at that beautiful one. Oh gosh, that scared me. There was a piece of bark stuck to the roots. I was like, oh my God, what am I touching? I am so happy right now. These look beautiful. I think I'm gonna go ahead and pull both these beds and then transfer the rest to the garage. I'm doing this pretty fast, and I think that will eliminate some of the back and forth. All right, so let's talk about curing the garlic. This garlic will be living in my garage for about the next 3 to 4 weeks, probably closer to the 4-week side. I will have 2 large fans going at one time. I have one going at the moment, and I'll put another one here later on. I might turn this off while I'm doing some of this, but overall, it's going to have fans on at all times. Then, what I have here is something that anyone could replicate in their garage. So my husband put a bunch of 2x4s up on the wall, and then we hung up all of this hog paneling with it. This way, nothing's laying on the wall. You get air surface all around. I will actually put one of the fans probably up there to where it will go along the back. And this way, all of the garlic is going to hang up on this wall out of the way. We can still park in the garage, but we're still gonna have really good airflow. It's going to be a dark, warm space away from the sun, which is what you want when it comes to curing. You want an area that's warm, that has good airflow, and you're not getting any type of sunlight in that area. So find a good area. The very first year I did cure my garlic, I did it in my shed, which honestly probably wasn't the best idea. We got a lot of rain, it ended up getting really humid in there, and there was no power out there where I could actually add any airflow sources. So that's why I like to do it in my garage. I can add a few fans. It's dark in here, it's cool in here. I don't really have to worry about anything. All right, so when it comes to curing garlic, all I'm going to do is do little clusters of 8 like this. I'm actually going to do a few here and then start hanging them up. So what I like to do is get about 8 heads of garlic. This seems to be a really good amount. It's not too much, it's not too little where you feel like you're doing a bunch, but it allows me to kind of hang it up where it's all laying flat. That way it's not a cluster and everything gets really good airflow. So we are going to get a bunch here. I do like to make sure if there is like any extra soil I can get off, that I can just rub it off really easily before it goes and hangs up. You don't want like any big chunks of dirt on your garlic, but you also don't have to be too tedious about this either. I'm just going to lay out my 8, 7, and 8. All right, so I'm going to take a few feet of twine here. This is the twine I like to use. It's nothing special. I just like it because it's in this can. It's really easy to cut like that without any scissors, and it fits in my pocket. I've mentioned this a few times, but I'm going to take the twine around kind of the mid portion of the garlic here, and I'm going to tie a tight knot, but nothing too tight. I mean, you want it to obviously hold while it's hanging, but you're not trying to suffocate your garlic. So just do a knot at the base here, and as you can see, It is holding up very nicely, and then we can hang. I'm gonna do a few more of these, hang a few, do a few more, hang a few. I think that'll be the easier option, because last year I was just up, down, up, down, up, down, and it was driving me absolutely crazy. This is one of those things where every single year you learn a way of doing things slightly different, and every year your system just improves on how you do something. I definitely feel like I'm being a lot more efficient with my time here in year 3 than I was the previous 2 years. I'm gonna let that one dry out a little bit more. There's just like a clump of soil at the very base. And this fan is kind of helping all that at the moment. All right, there's another 8. Beautiful. And then all I'm going to do here is actually tie it up to this hog panel. Take all the extra strings and then just tie another knot, and then readjust the garlic a little bit, and voila, let's get the next one. So when it comes to my second line, since we're kind of almost done with the top, I'm going to line up where these greens don't touch the other garlic. So as I'm finishing up hanging up this garlic, I do want to give some final thoughts here on some things I wish I could have done a little bit differently on year 3 of growing garlic. So as I mentioned earlier, we had a pretty warm winter. We really didn't get our cold snap in February like we typically do. And I honestly probably should have just started feeding my garlic in February as it started to grow. I didn't start feeding anything until about March, to be honest. So I like to start feeding my garlic with blood meal, give it a good nitrogen boost in the beginning, and then toward the end, I will feed it with bone meal, give it a good phosphorus boost to help that bulb development. And I will typically stop feeding at that 4 to 6 week mark whenever I start to see scapes, the final 4 weeks. And that's typically what I do for feeding. I feed every 2 to 3 weeks once I start feeding, but I didn't mention this, and somehow I don't know how I didn't mention this during the harvest portion, but I did put it across the screen. I like to harvest my garlic when the bottom 3 to 5 leaves have completely died back. I tend to have anywhere from about 8 to 12 leaves on my garlic plants, and this is about the halfway point. So that's typically where I like to pull my garlic. But yeah, either way, I harvest at that point. I don't know how I didn't mention that, to be completely honest. That's like something I should have mentioned at the beginning, but to my point, I started doing this at like 6:30 in the morning, so I was kind of tired. But this is just kind of my final thoughts as I am wrapping up and editing this video. Overall, I'm really impressed. I really think the 6-inch spacing versus my 4-inch spacing that I mentioned earlier made all the difference. I have a really consistent size compared to previous years when it comes to this garlic harvest. So overall, I'm really happy. All right, so we got 234 heads of garlic in total, which means we are exactly on par with last year. So we grew another year's worth of garlic again, which I'm so excited about. I am very happy with this harvest. It looks so good, and I was so nervous about it, which I knew I shouldn't have been, but it's just, I love garlic, and it's just one of those things that now that I've experienced a whole year's worth of my own garlic, this is something I definitely want to keep for life. This is something I'll grow for life. It's so easy. And honestly, I have my systems a lot better. Like this went so much smoother than last year now that I have a whole system and all of that. So I am so happy about this. I'm gonna get some fans on the garlic, get some airflow going. This is going to live in my garage for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll show you guys what it's all looking like once it's cured. But thanks for joining me today while I harvest garlic. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.